takes a more simple approach to developing artifacts and testing them. The two keys are kernel theories, and I'll talk about those a little more, and evaluation. Kernel theories are existing academic theories that inform the design of an artifact. So instead of just looking at a context, trying to understand how you might improve it or change it, and just then moving forward with doing something, what we say is that you have to have some theory, something to bring to bear that would explain why what you want to do will change the context in which you're working in.
So an artifact is something like your educational Facebook thing?
That's right. An artifact is a piece. It could be a software plugin. It could be a modified piece of software. It could be a framework or idea. We tend not to be interested in doing those things, but yeah, it's a man-made or human-made, I should say, innovation that will change something.
So you said that your experiment didn't really work in facilitating off-campus discussion.
Right.
Is it people just didn't log in and discuss things, or what?
Well, let me try and explain. As I talk, let me tell you the different things we did to try to tease that out, and then maybe that'll give you a better answer to your question. I think I can do that. If I don't, then you'll come back and say, you said you'd explain that. Why haven't you? So, okay. So just to briefly say something about kernel theories. There are tons of kernel theories. There are many. And these are a few exemplars of theories that seem to apply to social learning software context, or to putting social learning software into a variety of contexts. It's not all of them, but these are some of the most important ones that we've been either looking at or applying in our research. I underlined one of those theories. It's called constructivism, or constructivist theory. I don't know how many of you know about it, but essentially it says this. It's an educational theory, and it says learning has to be active. Learning has to be about sharing knowledge. It has to be two-way or multi-way. It can't just be, the old standard, I'm lecturing to you, like I'm doing right now, and you're supposed to absorb everything I tell you, and that's that. No, the student is more likely to learn. There's good evidence the students are more likely to learn if they're active learners. They do discovery learning. If they're in group work where they have to work with their colleagues, and so on and so forth. There are many pieces to constructivism, but most of our work really is framed in the educational context or around it. And almost all of it depends on the fact that, or on the assumption that constructivism is a valid theory. So we pull that into almost all our research. But we have a set of different kernel theories that we've used, and because I want to give you some examples, they'll come out in the various slides ahead. So these are the projects that we're either doing, completing, or in the process of developing. And so I'll give you some examples. How am I doing for time? Am I okay? Okay, so the first example.
Can you use a mic?
Yeah, I could. No, I'm fine. The only reason I use the mic is if somebody was there. I don't like. I get all confused by mics. I don't even. Confession. I'm talking about all the social software. I don't have a mobile phone. When the mobile phone rings, my wife's mobile phone rings, I almost always press the wrong button and hang up on them. That's about where I am. So I'm about the same with the microphone. So I'll take a chance on keeping my voice strong for a while longer. Let me give you some information about this dissertation that was completed about a year ago. And I'll go to this web screenshot. And the idea is that this was one of the original ideas that came out of our lab. And the idea was, in our school, and it's something I already talked about, students didn't seem to be very knowledgeable about what was going on in our school. The students wouldn't know what their colleagues were doing, maybe one or two, but not a lot of them. They didn't know what faculty were doing necessarily. They knew about what was in a course, but not what the broader sense of the faculty was. They didn't really know what their alumni, people who graduated, were doing, what they thought about, and so on. So we were convinced by this one student, Peter, that there might be value in creating a social software instance that could facilitate some of this knowledge sharing. And so he created Sysat Space. It's a, I'll go back here. This is not the best screenshot, but for some reason, Peter, in his wisdom, in his lack of wisdom, let Sysat Space die. It disappeared off the face of the earth. And there weren't many good screenshots taken of it for some reason. You can look at it.
That wasn't your School of Information Sciences and Technology?
Yeah, that's it. Sysat Space. So it was our own school. But it was installed in a third-party location because it's a long story. But anyway, it died. And you can go back and look at it from the Wayback Machine.
Okay.
But it's not. But only in the text. So you can look at all the content, but the look and feel won't be like that other page. So it's a long story.
But it was a web page.
It was a WordPress multi-user instance that was customized for this particular purpose, and it had two components. It had a few components, but the two main components were the news side or the community side, which published information that would be about people or events in the school. It was all about that. So there were interviews done with faculty, students, alumni, and those interviews were posted as videos. There were announcements, summaries of talks that were given, information about social events, and so on. This was all done on the one side of the interface. The other side was individual blog entries, and so, or at least the beginnings of individual blog entries and summaries of who was blogging, so they could talk about their own individual things. And the idea was to try and find out if Peter tried to find out if through Sysat Space he could increase something called the psychological sense of community, or the sense of community in the school. So he pre-tested people. In general, he didn't follow each individual, but in general he looked at what was the psychological sense of the community of the school when he installed Sysat Space, and what was it 6 months out, a year out, 18 months out. So kind of a case study, action research, social science process within looking at, and he customized Sysat Space further as time went on because he used the feedback. He didn't just ask people about psychological sense